Imagine for a moment that you are standing at a crossroads. One road is familiar. It's safe. It offers comfort, predictability, and no surprises. But it's narrow, dimly lit, and it doesn't take you anywhere beyond what you already know. The other road, it's uncharted. It's wide, it's filled with light, and though it may look uncertain at first, it promises the extraordinary. Most people, good people, hard-working people, choose the first road. They settle. They trade their potential for comfort, and in doing so, they quietly abandon the greatest version of themselves. And here's the truth that nobody wants to admit. The moment you settle for less, you send a silent signal to life itself. You tell the universe, "This is enough for me, don't bring me more." And the universe listens. It adjusts. It obeys your decision. Your standards are not just personal preferences, they are instructions to the algorithm of nature. They are the code by which your future is written. Have you ever noticed how life seems to give you exactly what you are willing to tolerate? Stay in a job that underpays and undervalues you, and suddenly years fly by with no promotion, no growth, no opportunity. Accept a relationship where your heart is unfulfilled, and somehow the same patterns repeat. Argument after argument, disappointment after disappointment. You don't just get what you dream of, you get what you're willing to settle for. And here's the dangerous part. Once you settle, you become preoccupied. You become stuck in the cycle of managing less. You invest your energy trying to make peace with mediocrity. You negotiate with yourself. It's not so bad. Maybe this is just how life is. At least it's stable. But deep down, your soul knows you're living beneath your potential. That gnawing restlessness, that's your higher self screaming, "This isn't it. You were made for more." Nature works on vibration. Every thought you entertain, every standard you accept, vibrates into the world like a frequency. Settle for less, and you vibrate scarcity, fear, and resignation. Refuse to settle, and you vibrate clarity, strength, and possibility. The law of resonance kicks in, aligning you with people, opportunities, and experiences that match your frequency. The algorithm of nature doesn't play favorites. It simply mirrors what you project. That's why settling is not just a small choice, it's a dangerous declaration. It's like walking into a restaurant and ordering from the appetizer menu when you are hungry for a feast. Life won't force the entree onto your plate. It takes your order and delivers it. Every time you say, "This is good enough," you lower the bar for what life believes you want. Think of it this way. When you stop settling, you stop being preoccupied with less, and space is created for more. By saying no to the wrong job, you make room for the right one. By walking away from the relationship that drains you, you open the door for love that fulfills you. By refusing to accept average results, you create a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. It rushes to fill it with the higher standard you've set. So let me ask you directly, where in your life have you been settling? Is it in your career, where you convince yourself that a steady paycheck is worth the death of your passion? Is it in your health, where you tolerate exhaustion and low energy because it's easier than discipline? Is it in your relationships, where you accept disrespect or neglect because loneliness feels scarier than raising your standards? Settling is not a neutral choice. It's not harmless. It robs you of your birthright. It signals to the very laws of nature that you've stopped reaching, stopped believing, stopped commanding more. And make no mistake, nature gives you exactly what you command, not what you casually wish for. Today I want you to hear me clearly. Raising your standards is not about arrogance. It's not about entitlement. It's about alignment. It's about declaring to life, "I am worthy of more. I will no longer make peace with less." When you raise your standards, you raise your vibration. And when you raise your vibration, you raise your life. Because at the end of the day, it's simple. You don't get what you want. You get what you accept. And the moment you stop settling, the moment you decide, "Never again will I lower my standards," you flip the switch. The algorithm of nature rewrites your future. So as we begin this journey, I want you to hold one truth close to your heart. Life will rise or fall to the level of your standards. Never forget that. Chapter 1, The Silent Enemy of Greatness. Settling for less often wears a disguise. It does not announce itself loudly. It sneaks in quietly, cloaked as comfort, dressed as safety, disguised as gratitude. It whispers to you, "Don't rock the boat. Be thankful for what you have. Don't ask for more. You might lose what you already hold." And so without realizing it, countless people surrender their highest potential in the name of stability. But let's tell the truth. Settling is not stability. It is slow decay. It is the gradual erosion of dreams that once burned bright in your heart. When you were young, you dreamed big. You believed you could conquer mountains, create something that mattered, live a life of significance. But somewhere along the way, the voice of caution grew louder than the voice of courage. And in choosing the lesser path, you unknowingly chose the silent enemy of greatness. Think about it. The man who stays in a job he hates, telling himself it pays the bills, is not choosing stability. He is choosing slow suffocation. The woman who remains in a relationship that chips away at her self-worth, saying at least she's not alone, is not choosing security. She is choosing quiet misery. Settling steals your future in installments, one compromise at a time. And the most dangerous thing about this enemy? It convinces you that it's normal. Look around. Society often applauds settling. Be realistic. Don't aim too high. At least you have something. But normal does not mean natural. What is common is not always right. The masses may settle, but greatness has never been found in the crowd. Greatness belongs to those who dare to expect more. Let's uncover what really happens when you settle. The moment you decide to accept less than you deserve, a chain reaction begins. First, your mind adjusts its expectations downward. It stops searching for possibilities because it has been told they are no longer needed. Second, your energy shifts, your body language, your confidence, even the sparkle in your eyes begins to fade. Third, your environment mirrors this choice. Life, like a faithful servant, delivers exactly what you instructed it to deliver, less effective. Have you ever wondered why opportunities seem to flow endlessly to certain people while others are stuck in the same place year after year? It is not luck. It is not fate. It is the silent standard they set. One person tolerates mediocrity, the other does not. And because life reflects what we tolerate, one stays stagnant while the other soars. Settling is dangerous because it reshapes your identity. You begin to define yourself by the lesser version you accepted. You say, this is just who I am. But no, it is not who you are. It is who you became when you surrendered. And the longer you stay in that place, the harder it becomes to remember that greatness was once inside you, waiting to be expressed. Think of your life as a garden. Every time you settle, you plant weeds, and weeds don't stay in one corner, they spread. They choke the flowers, they steal the sunlight, and soon the garden that once had the potential to bloom into beauty becomes overrun with the ordinary. Settling in one area of your life bleeds into others. Tolerate disrespect in relationships, and soon you tolerate disrespect at work. Accept mediocrity in health, and mediocrity shows up in finances. It is never isolated. It is a cancer that spreads silently. But here's the hope. The same way settling creates a downward spiral, refusing to settle creates an upward one. When you draw a line and say no more, you set in motion a new vibration. Suddenly your mind awakens to possibilities it had stopped seeing. Your energy lifts. Your environment begins to shift because nature cannot ignore a standard that has been raised. Life must rise to meet it. But first you must confront the lies that settling tells you. It will tell you that asking for more is greed. It will tell you that wanting better is arrogance. It will tell you that being unsatisfied makes you ungrateful. These are distortions. Gratitude does not mean settling. Gratitude says, I am thankful for what I have. Standards say, but I know I am worthy of more. You can be deeply grateful and still raise the bar. In fact, true gratitude for life means refusing to waste the potential that life has given you. Pause here and ask yourself, where have you quietly accepted less? Where have you silenced the voice that once said you were capable of more? It might be in your career, your health, your finances, your relationships, or even your faith. Be honest, because until you confront where you've settled, you cannot change the vibration you are sending out. The silent enemy of greatness thrives in denial. It survives when you look the other way. But the moment you see it, the moment you call it out, its power begins to break. Awareness is the first step to freedom, and once you are aware, you cannot go back to sleep. You can no longer pretend that less is enough. Something inside you demands more. This is not about perfection. It is about potential. It is about refusing to betray yourself by lowering your standards to fit circumstances. It is about declaring war on mediocrity and reclaiming the greatness you were designed for. Settling may have stolen years from you, but it doesn't have to steal your future. The enemy may have been silent, but now you can expose it, and when you expose it, you can defeat it. From this moment forward, remember this truth. The greatest threat to your destiny is not failure. It is not rejection. It is not struggle. The greatest threat is settling for less than you are capable of. Failure can be redeemed, rejection can redirect you, struggle can strengthen you, but settling kills possibility before it is even born. That is why it is the silent enemy of greatness, and that is why today you must choose to raise your standards and never look back. Chapter 2, The Vibrational Law of Life. Everything in this universe vibrates. From the stars burning in the galaxies to the thoughts running through your mind, all of it is energy in motion. And energy responds not to what you say casually, but to the vibration you hold consistently. When you settle for less, you lower your vibration. You send out a signal of scarcity, of resignation, of fear, and the universe, obedient as it is, reflects that vibration back to you in the form of experiences that match it. Think about how a radio works. You cannot tune into a jazz station while you are dialed to a rock frequency. It doesn't matter how badly you want the jazz, you only receive what you are tuned to. Life operates the same way. If your standards are low, if you are tolerating the unacceptable, you are tuned to the wrong station. And no matter how much you wish for better, you cannot receive better until you shift the dial of your vibration. Many people make the mistake of thinking that desire alone will change their reality. They say, I want more money, I want true love, I want health. But while their words speak desire, their vibration speaks doubt. Their actions speak tolerance of less. And the law of vibration listens more to the energy you live in than the words you speak. That is why so many dreams feel unanswered. It is not because life ignored you, it is because your vibration contradicted your desire. Settling for less is dangerous because it teaches your vibration to normalize mediocrity. Once you decide that this is good enough, your energy drops into alignment with smallness. You attract circumstances, people, and opportunities that match that frequency, and suddenly your life becomes an echo chamber of the very compromise you accepted. But here is the beauty of this law. It works both ways. The same way settling lowers your frequency, refusing to settle raises it. When you say no to what insults your soul, when you walk away from what does not align, you elevate your energy. You declare to the universe, I am ready for better. And like a magnet, better begins to find you. Higher frequency opportunities, healthier relationships, greater resources, they all begin to align because your vibration has shifted upward. Have you ever noticed that when you are excited, hopeful, and clear, opportunities appear almost magically? You meet the right people at the right time, doors open that you never saw before, synchronicities multiply. That is not coincidence, it is vibration. It is the resonance of your raised standard calling forth matching experiences. Here's where the danger of being preoccupied with less comes in. When you settle, you fill your mind and your life with low vibrational distractions. Instead of envisioning what you want, you spend your energy managing what you don't want. You become so consumed with making peace with mediocrity that there is no room left to imagine greatness. Your vibration stays locked in a loop of less, and the law of resonance simply delivers more of it. Imagine trying to plant a seed in soil already filled with weeds. No matter how great the seed, it cannot thrive until the weeds are cleared. Settling is the weeds. Raising your standards is the clearing. Only when you refuse to settle does the soil of your vibration become fertile for the seeds of greatness to grow. The vibrational law of life is simple. You don't attract what you wish for, you attract what you are. Your standards are the tuning fork of your frequency. If you raise them, your entire being vibrates higher, and life has no choice but to respond. Because just as gravity pulls things downward without fail, vibration pulls matching experiences toward you without fail. Think of the moments when you refused to accept less. Maybe you left a job that no longer valued you, and within months a better one appeared. Maybe you walked away from a relationship that drained you, and suddenly you felt lighter, freer, open to love again. Maybe you decided that just getting by financially was no longer acceptable, and new ideas or opportunities surfaced. These were not accidents. They were reflections of your new vibration. This is why clarity is essential. The universe does not respond to confusion. It responds to certainty. When your standards are vague, your vibration is scattered. But when your standards are clear, when you know exactly what you will no longer tolerate, your vibration becomes focused. That focus is power. It draws matching energy like iron to a magnet. Never underestimate this truth. The moment you raise your standards, your vibration begins to call out into the universe, send me more, and more begins to arrive, not always instantly. not always in the way you expect, but always faithfully. Because vibration is law, it cannot be broken. It can only be aligned or misaligned. The choice is yours. Pause and ask yourself, what vibration are you living in today? Are you vibrating acceptance of the ordinary, or are you vibrating expectation of the extraordinary? Are you sending signals of fear and doubt, or signals of clarity and strength? Your life right now is the mirror. Look at what it reflects, and you will know the frequency you are tuned to. Settling is not just about the external conditions of your life. It is about the internal vibration you decide to live in. That is why people with less material wealth but higher standards of self-worth often live richer, more fulfilling lives than those who settle into abundance without gratitude or vision. The vibration of dignity, clarity, and expectation outweighs the vibration of compromise every single time. So remember this. Vibration is not mystical, it is practical. It is the energy you emit by the standards you enforce. Raise those standards and you raise your frequency. Raise your frequency and you raise your destiny. Never settle for less, because when you do, you tune into a life of scarcity. But when you refuse to settle, you retune yourself to the station of greatness, and greatness must answer. Chapter 3, Decoding Nature's Algorithm. Life is not random. It may feel unpredictable at times, but beneath the surface there is order. There are laws, principles, and systems that operate with precision. Just as gravity ensures that what goes up must come down, the algorithm of nature ensures that what you demand with clarity or what you tolerate in silence will be returned to you. Your standards are not suggestions, they are commands written into this invisible code. Think of nature as a giant operating system. Every thought, belief, and decision you make is like a line of code. If you settle for less, you are essentially programming the system to deliver less. You have written the command, and the system follows it flawlessly. But if you refuse to settle, if you declare with certainty what you will accept, you rewrite the code. And once the code is changed, the results must change. The challenge is that most people are programming unconsciously. They say they want success, but they code failure by settling for comfort. They say they want love, but they code loneliness by staying in relationships that dishonor them. They say they want abundance, but they code scarcity by tolerating just enough. The algorithm cannot give you what you dream of. It can only give you what you command through the standards you enforce. Imagine walking into a restaurant and placing no order. The waiter will eventually bring you something random or nothing at all. Settling is the equivalent of leaving your life order blank. And then we wonder why life feels unsatisfying, because the algorithm of nature is waiting for clear instructions, and it only responds to what you consistently tolerate. When you raise your standards, you begin to give the system clarity. You say, no longer will I accept disrespect. No longer will I accept mediocrity. No longer will I accept scarcity. Each declaration is a new line of code. Each decision to walk away from less is like debugging your program, removing errors, and running a cleaner, higher version of yourself. And once the system has the new code, it must deliver new results. This is why raising standards is not about arrogance. It is about alignment with the algorithm that already governs life. You cannot bypass it. You cannot manipulate it with words while your actions contradict your desires. The algorithm listens not to your wishes, but to your vibration and your boundaries. It calculates your future from the level of clarity you embody. Settling confuses the algorithm. When you say you want greatness but tolerate less, you send mixed signals. The system, like a computer, cannot run two conflicting commands at once, so it defaults to the strongest code, what you consistently accept. That is why you cannot dream of abundance while living in a vibration of scarcity. The code contradicts itself, and the algorithm will always favor the settled command over the casual wish. Think of people you admire who live extraordinary lives. Their results are not accidents. They are the outcome of uncompromising code. They told the algorithm of nature exactly what they expected, and they enforced it daily. They refused to settle. They paid the price of discomfort, rejection, or temporary struggle because they knew that clarity commands results. And here's the secret. The algorithm of nature does not punish or reward. It mirrors. It reflects. It delivers precisely what you input. If your standards say this is enough, it stops there. If your standards say I am worthy of more, it continues. The system is neutral. It does not care whether you choose greatness or mediocrity. It will deliver either one faithfully. That neutrality should wake you up, because if life is not choosing for you, it means you must choose for yourself. The algorithm of nature will never interrupt your settling. It will never say, stop accepting less. It will simply echo your command, quietly and consistently, which means your destiny is not controlled by luck, by chance, or by circumstance. It is controlled by the code you run through your standards. Many people spend their lives praying for miracles while programming mediocrity. They hope for breakthroughs while enforcing limitations. They ask for abundance while living in scarcity, and then they call life unfair. But life is not unfair. It is precise. It is exact. It is the most reliable system in existence. And once you understand this, you realize that settling is not just a mistake. It is self-sabotage coded into your future. So how do you rewrite the code? First, you must recognize the commands you've been giving. Look at your life today. It is the output of yesterday's standards. If you are underpaid, undervalued, unloved, or uninspired, it is because somewhere in your past you settled. You wrote a line of code that said, this is enough. The algorithm obeyed. The good news, you can rewrite it now. You can debug your life by raising your standards today. When you refuse to settle, you are not just making a personal decision. You are recalibrating the system that governs your future. Every time you walk away from less, you upload a new instruction. Every time you demand more of yourself and others, you shift the operating code of your reality. And over time, the algorithm has no choice but to deliver a life that matches your new standards. Think of pioneers, inventors, and leaders throughout history. They were not necessarily more talented than others, but they refused to settle for the limits society tried to place on them. They rewrote the code. They looked at what was considered normal and said, not enough. And the algorithm of nature bent itself to their command because they provided clear, uncompromising input. Settling, then, is not harmless. It is a faulty command. It is programming your destiny with errors that will show up in the form of frustration, regret, and wasted potential. But clarity, courage, and high standards, they are clean code. They are the keys to unlocking the system. They are the language the algorithm of nature understands and responds to. So remember this. Life is not withholding greatness from you. The algorithm is not broken. The system is not against you. The code you've been running is simply too low. Raise it, rewrite it, declare boldly what you will and will not accept. Because once the code changes, the output must change. That is the precision of the algorithm of nature, and it will never fail. Chapter 4, Breaking the Chains of Psychological Traps. If settling is the silent enemy of greatness, then psychological traps are the chains that keep you bound to it. These traps are not always visible, but they are powerful. They live in your thoughts, in your fears, and in the beliefs you inherited from the world around you. And until you break these chains, you will continue to accept less than you are capable of. The first trap is fear. Fear whispers, what if you fail? What if nothing better comes? What if raising your standards leaves you with nothing at all? This is the fear of scarcity, and it convinces millions to stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and lives that shrink them. Fear magnifies the risk of change while blinding you to the greater risk of staying the same. Think about it. How many times have you stayed in a situation longer than you should have because the unknown felt scarier than the known? Even when the known was miserable, at least it was familiar. That's how fear traps you. It convinces you that pain you know is safer than possibility you don't. The second trap is guilt. Guilt says you should be thankful for what you have. How dare you want more when others have less? And while gratitude is noble, guilt distorts it into a prison. Gratitude and high standards can coexist, but guilt tricks you into believing that aiming higher is selfish. And so you settle, not because you are satisfied, but because you feel guilty for asking for more. The truth is, fear and guilt are illusions. They are not walls, they are shadows. They only have power when you believe them. The moment you challenge them, the chains begin to break. The third trap is cultural conditioning. From an early age, many of us are told, don't be greedy, be realistic, don't dream too big. Society often applauds modesty but misunderstands it. Modesty is humility in spirit, but settling is surrender in practice. And when you confuse the two, you build a life based on other people's limited beliefs instead of your own limitless potential. Consider how many voices have shaped your standards. Teachers who told you not to expect too much. parents who worried that failure would embarrass you, friends who mocked your ambition because it threatened their comfort. Every one of those voices planted a seed of limitation, and when you let those seeds take root, they grew into the very chains that keep you stuck. Ask yourself, how much of what you tolerate today actually belongs to you, and how much is the conditioning you inherited from others? Are you living by your own vision, or are you living by the expectations of people who settled before you? These are uncomfortable questions, but they are the key to freedom. Because once you see that your standards were shaped by someone else's fear, you gain the power to rewrite them. The fourth trap is comparison. Comparison whispers, at least you're doing better than them. It lulls you into complacency by lowering the bar. If your neighbor is struggling and you're doing slightly better, you convince yourself you're succeeding, even when you know you're far from your true potential. Comparison is the enemy of excellence because it measures your life against others instead of against your best self. Freedom begins the moment you refuse to live by borrowed beliefs. You were not created to settle into the mold of society's expectations. You were created to expand, to grow, to rise, and every time you break a psychological chain, you reclaim a piece of the greatness that was always yours. The fifth trap is comfort. Comfort says, why change? Things aren't that bad. Comfort is not your friend, it is your silent captor. It convinces you to trade growth for ease, expansion for familiarity. It tells you that the pain of discipline is worse than the pain of regret, but it lies. Regret lasts a lifetime. Discipline is temporary. Think of how many people live their entire lives inside the walls of comfort. They stay in the same job, in the same patterns, in the same routines, not because it fulfills them, but because it is predictable. And predictability feels safe. But what they don't see is that comfort slowly numbs their potential. It dulls their hunger. It convinces them that average is acceptable. The sixth trap is identity. Identity says, this is just who I am. You tell yourself, I'm not the type of person who can be wealthy. I'm not the type who can be fit. I'm not the type who can have love that lasts. These are not truths. They are stories you've repeated so often that they feel real. Settling becomes part of your identity, and you defend it even when it hurts you. But identity is malleable. It is clay, not stone. The person you are today is the result of past choices, not permanent destiny. The moment you raise your standards, you begin shaping a new identity. And that identity will pull you toward new actions, new relationships, new outcomes. The chain of identity is only strong if you refuse to question it. Breaking these traps requires courage. Courage to feel fear, but act anyway. Courage to honor gratitude without letting guilt shrink you. Courage to question conditioning, reject comparison, abandon comfort, and rewrite identity. When you summon that courage, you do more than break chains. You ignite freedom. And freedom is the soil where greatness grows. Let's pause here. Imagine your life without these chains, without fear holding you back, without guilt whispering in your ear, without conditioning shaping your choices, without comparison lowering your bar, without comfort numbing your potential, without a false identity keeping you small. What would be possible for you then? What could you create? Who could you become? These traps are powerful only when they are hidden. Once you see them, once you name them, their strength weakens. Awareness is liberation. And the more you practice awareness, the easier it becomes to spot the lies of fear, guilt, conditioning, comparison, comfort, and identity before they entangle you again. Never forget this. Settling is not inevitable. It is a choice, and choices can be changed. By breaking these psychological chains, you reclaim your freedom to choose differently. You reclaim the authority to command life's algorithm with clarity and strength. And in that moment, you rise beyond the traps that kept you bound to less. Chapter 5, The Science of High Standards. High standards are not just a motivational slogan. They are a psychological and neurological force that rewires the way you think, act, and live. When you raise your standards, you do more than change your goals, you change your brain. Neuroscience shows us that the human mind is designed to adapt to the minimum level it deems acceptable. In other words, your brain is a thermostat, and your standards are the temperature setting. Think about what happens when the thermostat in your home is set to 70 degrees. If the temperature drops, the system activates to bring it back up. If the temperature rises, the system cools it down. In the same way, your brain works tirelessly to keep your life in alignment with the standards you set. If you believe you are only capable of earning a certain income, your brain unconsciously finds ways to keep you in that range. If you believe you deserve only average relationships, your choices and behaviors will maintain that level. Your standards lock in your results. This explains why people with similar talents and opportunities can end up with radically different lives. It isn't always about intelligence or luck. It's about the thermostat of standards. One person sets the bar low, and life dutifully delivers mediocrity. Another sets the bar high, and the brain, body, and spirit work together to rise and meet it. Standards act like invisible instructions to your nervous system, telling it what to accept and what to reject. The science is clear. What you repeatedly tolerate becomes your reality. What you repeatedly demand becomes your destiny. And the moment you raise your standards, your brain begins rewiring itself to close the gap between where you are and where you declared you must be. This is why standards are not optional. They are the blueprint of transformation. Another powerful concept from psychology is expectancy theory. It teaches that people do not act according to what is possible. They act according to what they expect. If you expect little, you act small. If you expect greatness, you act boldly. Standards shape expectancy. They decide what you believe is realistic, and your behavior follows suit. This is why raising your standards is not just motivational, it is scientific. It alters the expectations that drive every choice you make. Imagine two athletes with the same physical ability. One sets a standard to simply finish the race. The other sets a standard to break the record. Their training, their discipline, their mindset, all of it will look radically different, even though their potential is the same. The one who aimed only to finish may cross the line satisfied, but the one who aimed to break the record will push beyond limits and discover a capacity they never knew they had. Expectation shaped by standards determines performance. The same applies in daily life. If your standard is to get by financially, you will always find ways to just survive. If your standard is financial freedom, you will search for opportunities, build skills, and take risks that match that level. If your standard is health at the minimum level of avoiding sickness, you will eat and live in ways that keep you barely functional. But if your standard is vibrant energy and longevity, your choices will align with that higher demand. The science is undeniable. What you expect, you prepare for. What you prepare for, you attract. And what you attract, you eventually live. That cycle begins with standards. When you raise them, expectancy theory works in your favor, pulling your actions and your results upward into alignment with your new level. Another crucial aspect of high standards is how they reshape self-image. Psychologists have long emphasized that human beings act in alignment with the way they see themselves. If your self-image is small, your actions will be small. If your self-image is powerful, your actions will be bold. Standards are what sculpt that self-image. Every time you say, "I refuse to settle," you carve a new line in the picture of who you are. Consider the difference between someone who identifies as a casual exerciser and someone who identifies as an athlete. Both may go to the gym, but their standards dictate everything about their approach. The casual exerciser works out when it's convenient. The athlete trains whether they feel like it or not. The casual exerciser sees missing a workout as no big deal. The athlete sees it as breaking identity. The difference isn't talent, it's standards shaping identity and identity shaping action. This is why affirmations and positive thinking alone are not enough. If your standards remain low, your self-image will eventually override your words. You can say, "I am successful" 100 times a day, but if you tolerate laziness, disorganization, or fear, your subconscious will still label you as average. True transformation happens when standards change, because they force your actions and self-image to evolve together. Think of standards as the guardrails of your self-image. They protect you from drifting into mediocrity. They keep you aligned with the person you are becoming, not the person you used to be. But when you raise your standards, you do more than change your circumstances. You reintroduce yourself to yourself. You create a new identity, and that identity pulls your future upward like a magnet drawing steel. Pause and think about your own life. What standards have you been living by without realizing it? What income level have you unconsciously accepted as normal? What level of health have you tolerated as good enough? What kind of relationships have you convinced yourself are all you can get? These are not accidents, they are standards, quietly dictating your results. The good news is this: the science of standards proves that the moment you raise them, everything begins to shift. Your brain adapts, your expectations recalibrate, your self-image realigns, and the world outside responds because the algorithm of nature cannot ignore a raised command. Remember, you are not limited by your potential, you are limited by your standards. The science confirms what wisdom has always taught: life will rise to meet the level you demand of it. Set the bar low and mediocrity will meet you. Set the bar high and greatness has no choice but to answer. Chapter 6. The ripple effect of refusing to settle. Every decision you make sends ripples into the rest of your life. When you refuse to settle in one area, the impact does not stay contained. It spreads outward, shaping every corner of your existence. This is the power of high standards. They do not just transform a single domain, they create a chain reaction of growth. Let's start with health. When you raise your standard for how you treat your body, everything else shifts. Better health gives you more energy. More energy improves your productivity. Higher productivity boosts your confidence. And greater confidence changes how you show up in relationships, in your career, and in your pursuit of purpose. A single choice, refusing to settle for poor health, creates a ripple that elevates your entire life. The same principle applies to wealth. If you settle for just enough, you spend your life managing scarcity, worrying about bills, and limiting your dreams. But when you raise your standard to financial freedom, you begin to act differently. You save with intention, invest with discipline, and think creatively about opportunities. And those actions don't just affect your bank account, they affect your peace of mind, your generosity, and the legacy you leave behind. Relationships are another ripple point. When you refuse to settle for disrespect, neglect, or lukewarm connection, you send a signal to life itself. I value love that is true, deep, and lasting. That decision ripples outward, not only attracting healthier partners, but also improving how you value yourself. You begin to carry yourself differently, set boundaries more firmly, and inspire others by example. The standard you set in relationships becomes a mirror for how others learn to treat you. Purpose is another area where refusing to settle creates profound ripples. Too many people settle for work that pays the bills but starves the soul. They convince themselves that passion is a luxury, that purpose is unrealistic. But the moment you raise your standard and say, "I will no longer spend my life in work that drains me," something shifts. You begin to seek opportunities that align with your values. You find ways to turn your gifts into contributions. And when you do work that matters, it fuels joy, fulfillment, and resilience that overflow into every other area of your life. Even your environment changes when you stop settling. When you raise your standard for who you spend time with, you start attracting different people. The moment you refuse to tolerate negativity, gossip, or complacency, you naturally gravitate toward people who uplift, challenge, and inspire you. And those relationships create ripples of accountability, creativity, and support that push you further than you could ever go alone. Think of it this way: every raised standard is like dropping a stone into water. The ripples reach farther than you can see. A single decision to care for your health, to demand respect, to pursue purpose creates momentum that touches your finances, your relationships, your self-image, even your spiritual life. And just as ripples spread without effort, the benefits of higher standards multiply naturally once they are set in motion. The power of this ripple effect is that it compounds. One bold choice to refuse less today creates opportunities tomorrow that you could never have predicted. Over time, those ripples collide, merge, and form waves strong enough to carry you to places you once thought impossible. That is the unseen power of refusing to settle. The first step opens the floodgates to transformation far beyond your imagination. What's most powerful about the ripple effect is how it influences the people around you. When you raise your standards, you don't just change your own life, you give permission to others to do the same. Children watch their parents, friends watch each other, teams watch their leaders, and every time you refuse to settle, you plant a seed of possibility in someone else's mind. You show them, not through words but through example, that more is possible. Think of a parent who refuses to settle for unhealthy patterns. That decision doesn't just impact their body, it rewrites the legacy of health for their children. Think of an entrepreneur who refuses to settle for mediocrity in their business. That decision doesn't just create wealth, it creates jobs, opportunities, and inspiration for an entire community. One raised standard can elevate generations. That is the magnitude of the ripple effect. On the other hand, settling also ripples outward. When you lower your bar, others notice. If a leader accepts mediocrity, the team follows. If a parent accepts less, the children learn to do the same. Standards are contagious, whether high or low, and that is why refusing to settle is not just a personal act, it is a responsibility. Because whether you realize it or not, your standards are teaching others how to live. Imagine what would happen if more people decided today, I will never again settle for less than I deserve. Entire families would shift. Workplaces would transform. Communities would rise. Nations would elevate. The ripple effect is not abstract. It is real. It is measurable. And it begins with one person. That person can be you. So take a moment and look at your own life. What single standard, if you raised it today, would send ripples into every other area? Is it your health? Your finances, your relationships, your sense of purpose? One decision in one area can alter the trajectory of them all. That is the hidden power of refusing to settle. You never know how far the ripples will reach until you make the choice. Settling creates ripples of limitation. Refusing to settle creates ripples of expansion. And expansion is what you were built for. You were not designed to live in circles of scarcity, stress, or survival. You were designed to expand, to influence, to create waves of impact that go beyond your lifetime. So let this truth sink deep. Every time you raise a standard, you are not just changing your life, you are shifting the current of the world around you. Never underestimate the ripple effect of one courageous choice. Refuse less, demand more, and watch as your ripples grow into waves of greatness. Chapter 7, Spiritual Laws of Worthiness. Beyond psychology, beyond neuroscience, beyond strategy, there is a deeper dimension to raising your standards, the spiritual. Every wisdom tradition across history whispers the same truth. You will receive according to what you believe you are worthy of. Worthiness is not arrogance, and it is not entitlement. It is alignment with the spiritual law that says life is a mirror, and the reflection will always match the image you hold of yourself. Look at the scriptures, philosophies, and teachings passed down through time. In the Bible it says, as you believe, so shall it be done unto you. In Eastern philosophy, the principle is karma. Energy reflects energy. Action reflects action. In Stoic thought, dignity of character attracts dignity of outcome. Across cultures, the message is the same. Your sense of worth determines what life delivers. The danger of settling is not just that you lower your goals, but that you lower your sense of worth. When you accept less than you deserve, you reinforce the lie that you are not worthy of more. And once that belief takes root, it colors every prayer you pray, every action you take, every expectation you carry. Settling becomes a spiritual declaration of unworthiness. But when you raise your standards, you send a very different declaration into the fabric of life. I am worthy of more. I am a child of the Creator, designed for greatness, not mediocrity. That is not pride. It is truth. It is humility to recognize that you dishonor your source when you live beneath your potential. Worthiness is not about demanding from life. It is about accepting what has already been made possible for you. Think of how this plays out in daily life. A person who believes they are unworthy of love will unconsciously sabotage healthy relationships and cling to toxic ones. A person who feels unworthy of abundance will overspend, undercharge, or miss opportunities that could change their life. A person who doubts their worthiness of peace will fill their days with chaos, distraction, and noise. Life is not withholding from them. It is mirroring the image they carry of themselves. Worthiness is not something you earn. It is something you awaken to. Too many people think they must prove their worth by overworking, overgiving, or overperforming. But spiritual law says otherwise. You were born worthy. You were born with a divine spark that carries infinite potential. Settling blinds you to that truth, while raising your standards awakens you to it. Imagine standing before a mirror. If the reflection shows dirt on your face, you do not reach out to wipe the mirror. You clean yourself. In the same way, if life reflects back scarcity, disrespect, or mediocrity, the answer is not to blame the world, but to raise the image you hold of yourself. Clean the inner vision, and the outer reflection must change. This is why raising your standards is a spiritual act. It is not about greed or ego. It is about reverence. It is about saying, I honor the life I have been given, too much to waste it in smallness. I honor my Creator too much to accept mediocrity as my destiny. When you refuse to settle, you are not just elevating your own life, you are aligning with a divine law that rewards worthiness with abundance. Another universal principle tied to worthiness is the law of resonance. Everything vibrates at a frequency, and like frequencies attract each other. When you carry yourself with dignity and self-respect, you emit a frequency of worthiness. That frequency resonates with opportunities, relationships, and blessings that match it. But when you carry guilt, shame, or self-doubt, your vibration lowers, and you resonate with circumstances that confirm those beliefs. You've seen this play out. People who know their worth seem to walk into rooms differently. Their presence is magnetic. They do not need to shout their value, it radiates. They attract respect without demanding it. On the other hand, people who doubt their worth often apologize for existing. They shrink. They hesitate. They tolerate treatment that chips away at their soul. And life, ever faithful to the law of resonance, simply gives them more of what they project. Worthiness is also tied to the principle of stewardship. When you declare yourself worthy of more, life tests you with responsibility. If you settle for less, you prove unready for greater blessings. But if you steward what you have with excellence, your time, your gifts, your opportunities, you align with the spiritual law that says to whom much is given, much is required. Raising your standards is not just about demanding more, it is about becoming more capable of handling more. This is why refusing to settle is both sacred and practical. Sacred because it affirms your divine worth. Practical because it places you in resonance with greater possibilities. When you raise your standards, you do not beg life to favor you. You align yourself so that favor cannot miss you. Worthiness is the bridge between who you are and all that you are meant to receive. Pause and reflect. Where have you been settling because deep down you questioned your worth? Was it in love, believing you didn't deserve loyalty and affection? Was it in finances, believing wealth was for others but not for you? Was it in purpose, convincing yourself that your gifts were too small to matter? These are not truths, they are distortions born from forgetting who you are. You were created in greatness for greatness. Settling is not humility, it is dishonor. It dishonors your spirit, your potential, and the source that gave them to you. To accept less than you are worthy of is to send a message to the universe that the gift of life will be wasted in compromise. And life, operating on its spiritual laws, will simply echo back that choice. But when you raise your standards from a place of worthiness, you awaken something powerful. You declare, I will no longer live small. And the moment you declare it, the universe rushes to rearrange itself around your new vibration. Worthiness opens the floodgates of abundance. Never forget, the standard you set for yourself is the permission slip you give life to bless you. Chapter 8, the framework of transformation. Refusing to settle is not just an idea, it must become a framework for living. Inspiration is powerful, but without a structure, old habits pull you back into compromise. That's why transformation requires a clear process, a set of steps that guide you from awareness to action. Think of it like building a house. Vision provides the design, but structure provides the strength. The first step in this framework is awareness. You cannot change what you refuse to see. Awareness means confronting the places where you have quietly lowered the bar. It means asking yourself the hard questions. Where am I tolerating less than I deserve? Where am I betraying my own potential for the sake of comfort or fear? Awareness shines a light on the hidden corners where settling has taken root. The second step is decision. Awareness without decision leads to frustration. You may see the problem, but until you choose differently, nothing changes. Decision is the moment you draw a line in the sand. It is the instant you declare, never again will I accept less than I am worthy of. This decision must be firm because the old life will always try to pull you back. Without decision, awareness is powerless. These first two steps, awareness and decision, ignite the process of transformation. They are the spark that lights the fire. Once you see the truth and decide to act on it, momentum begins. You shift from passive acceptance into active creation. And in that moment, you stop being a prisoner of circumstance and start becoming the architect of destiny. Another universal principle tied to worthiness is the law of resonance. Everything vibrates at a frequency, and like frequencies attract each other. When you carry yourself with dignity and self-respect, you emit a frequency of worthiness. That frequency resonates with opportunities, relationships, and blessings that match it. But when you carry guilt, shame, or self-doubt, your vibration lowers, and you resonate with circumstances that confirm those beliefs. You've seen this play out. People who know their worth seem to walk into rooms differently. Their presence is magnetic. They do not need to shout their value, it radiates. They attract respect without demanding it. On the other hand, people who doubt their worth often apologize for existing. They shrink. They hesitate. They tolerate treatment that chips away at their soul. And life, ever faithful to the law of resonance, simply gives them more of what they project. Worthiness is also tied to the principle of stewardship. When you declare yourself worthy of more, life tests you with responsibility. If you settle for less, you prove unready for greater blessings. But if you steward what you have with excellence, your time, your gifts, your opportunities, you align with the spiritual law that says to whom much is given, much is required. Raising your standards is not just about demanding more, it is about becoming more capable of handling more. This is why refusing to settle is both sacred and practical. Sacred because it affirms your divine worth. Practical because it places you in resonance with greater possibilities. When you raise your standards, you do not beg life to favor you. You align yourself so that favor cannot miss you. Worthiness is the bridge between who you are and all that you are meant to receive. Pause and reflect. Where have you been settling because deep down you questioned your worth? Was it in love, believing you didn't deserve loyalty and affection? Was it in finances, believing wealth was for others but not for you? Was it in purpose, convincing yourself that your gifts were too small to matter? These are not truths, they are distortions born from forgetting who you are. You were created in greatness for greatness. Settling is not humility, it is dishonor. It dishonors your spirit, your potential, and the source that gave them to you. To accept less than you are worthy of is to send a message to the universe that the gift of life will be wasted in compromise. And life, operating on its spiritual laws, will simply echo back that choice. But when you raise your standards from a place of worthiness, you awaken something powerful. You declare, I will no longer live small. And the moment you declare it, the universe rushes to rearrange itself around your new vibration. Worthiness opens the floodgates of abundance. Never forget, the standard you set for yourself is the permission slip you give life to bless you. Chapter 8, the framework of transformation. Refusing to settle is not just an idea, it must become a framework for living. Inspiration is powerful, but without a structure, old habits pull you back into compromise. That's why transformation requires a clear process, a set of steps that guide you from awareness to action. Think of it like building a house. Vision provides the design, but structure provides the strength. The first step in this framework is awareness. You cannot change what you refuse to see. Awareness means confronting the places where you have quietly lowered the bar. It means asking yourself the hard questions. Where am I tolerating less than I deserve? Where am I betraying my own potential for the sake of comfort or fear? Awareness shines a light on the hidden corners where settling has taken root. The second step is decision. Awareness without decision leads to frustration. You may see the problem, but until you choose differently, nothing changes. Decision is the moment you draw a line in the sand. It is the instant you declare, never again will I accept less than I am worthy of. This decision must be firm because the old life will always try to pull you back. Without decision, awareness is powerless. These first two steps, awareness and decision, ignite the process of transformation. They are the spark that lights the fire. Once you see the truth and decide to act on it, momentum begins. You shift from passive acceptance into active creation. And in that moment, you stop being a prisoner of circumstance and start becoming the architect of destiny. The third step of transformation is replacement. Once you remove what no longer serves you, you must fill the gap with something greater. If you end a toxic relationship, you replace it with self-love and healthier connections. If you walk away from a dead-end job, you replace it with growth, learning, and opportunities that align with your vision. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you don't intentionally fill the space, mediocrity will creep back in. Replacement is where many people stumble. They stop one bad habit but never create a better one. They walk away from what hurt them but fail to cultivate what will heal them. The result? They eventually return to the very patterns they tried to escape. That's why replacement is not optional, it is essential. To break free from settling, you must actively design what takes its place. The fourth step is environment. Your environment is either fertilizing your growth or poisoning it. You cannot raise your standards while staying in spaces filled with negativity, gossip, or complacency. Your surroundings, people, places, and influences are constantly shaping your vibration. If you want to transform, you must upgrade your environment. Seek out circles where excellence is normal, not exceptional. Surround yourself with voices that remind you of your worth, not ones that make you doubt it. Awareness, decision, replacement, and environment. These 4 steps build momentum. Together they move you from passive dreaming to active transformation. They take the concept of refusing to settle and turn it into a lifestyle. And the moment you apply them, you begin to rise into alignment with the life you were always meant to live. The 5th step of transformation is patience. This is where many give up. They raise their standards, they make the decision, they even change their environment. But when results don't come instantly, they retreat back into settling. Patience is not passive, it is active endurance. It is the discipline to keep moving forward even when the harvest has not yet appeared. Think of a farmer. After planting seeds, he doesn't dig them up the next day to check if they are growing. He trusts the process. He waters, he tends, he waits, knowing that growth is happening beneath the surface. The same is true of transformation. When you raise your standards, the universe begins rearranging circumstances on your behalf. But just because you don't see immediate results doesn't mean nothing is happening. Patience keeps you aligned while the unseen shifts take place. Patience also protects you from desperation. When you grow impatient, you are tempted to accept less, to lower the bar just to feel progress. But patience reminds you that temporary discomfort is worth lasting greatness. Every great achievement in history was built not just on bold decisions, but on sustained patience. Without it, momentum collapses before results can appear. So remember, awareness starts the journey, decision commits you, replacement strengthens you, environment shapes you, and patience sustains you. Together, these steps form a framework that guarantees growth. Transformation is not a single leap, it is a steady walk guided by standards. And when you walk it faithfully, step by step, you build a life that no longer bends to the weight of compromise. Pause and look at this framework as a whole. Awareness, decision, replacement, environment, and patience. Each one is simple, but together they are unstoppable. They form the backbone of transformation, the structure that ensures you do not drift back into compromise once inspiration fades. Settling collapses when structure is built. Without a framework, emotion is temporary, but with a framework, your raised standards take root. They become habits. Habits become identity, and identity shapes destiny. This is why the framework is not just useful, it is essential. Imagine your life 1 year from now if you applied these steps with discipline. Imagine the ripples spreading through your health, your wealth, your relationships, and your purpose. Imagine the clarity, the energy, the confidence that would emerge. That future is not far away. It begins the moment you commit to the framework. Refuse less, embrace the structure, and transformation will no longer be a dream but your daily reality. So what do these stories teach us? They show that the decision to refuse less is not reserved for the privileged or the extraordinary. It is a universal power available to anyone willing to claim it. Each person you've heard about, whether a business leader, a writer, an activist, or a student, stood at the same crossroads you stand at today. Settle or rise. Settling always feels safer in the moment, but it guarantees regret in the future. Refusing to settle often feels frightening, but it guarantees growth, even if the path is difficult. The choice is never about ease. It is about destiny. And every person who has shifted history, transformed communities, or elevated their own lives has done so by making the harder choice to demand more. Remember this, their stories are not meant to intimidate you, but to awaken you. The same courage, the same fire, the same resilience that burned in them is alive in you. All it takes is one decision, one refusal to settle, to begin writing your own story of triumph. Chapter 10, The Final Call to Greatness. We have walked through the dangers of settling, the laws of vibration, the algorithm of nature, the traps of the mind, the science of standards, the ripple effects, the spiritual laws, the framework of transformation, and the stories of those who refused less. Now the path leads here to the final call. And the call is simple. Raise your standards, never settle, and step fully into the life that was waiting for you all along. Life is not withholding greatness from you, it is waiting for your command. The algorithm of nature is not broken, it is precise. It is responding right now to the signals you send through your standards. If you tolerate less, it will deliver less. If you demand more, it will rise to meet you. The question is not whether life is faithful. The question is whether you are clear and courageous enough to set the bar high. Think about the alternative. Think about the cost of continuing to settle. Imagine 10 years passing where you still make the same compromises, still live beneath your worth, still silence the voice inside that tells you there is more. Picture the regret, the bitterness, the realization that the only thing that held you back was your willingness to accept less. That is the price of settling, and it is always more expensive than courage. But imagine the opposite. Imagine 10 years from now looking back and seeing a life filled with growth, love, health, purpose, and abundance, all because you drew a line and said, "Never again will I settle." That is the reward waiting for you. The final call is this: refuse less, demand more, and let your raised standards become the compass that guides you into greatness. Greatness is not a gift handed to the few. It is a demand placed upon all who are willing to answer it. The call to greatness is not about being better than others. It is about being better than the version of yourself that settled yesterday. Every time you raise the bar, you take one step closer to the person you were created to become. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a mountain trail. Behind you lies the valley of comfort, the land of compromise where settling rules. Ahead of you lies a steep climb. It looks difficult, maybe even intimidating. But at the top, the view is breathtaking. That climb is your journey of refusing less. Every step may challenge you, but every step also strengthens you. And when you reach the summit, you will see clearly why settling was never an option. The truth is, the climb will never be easy. There will be moments when the weight of change feels heavy, when the temptation to go back to comfort whispers in your ear. But greatness is found in those moments when you say no to going backward and yes to pressing forward. The reward of perseverance is not just what you achieve, it is who you become in the process. This is your call, to break free from the silent enemy of settling, to live not by fear but by faith, to rise not by chance but by choice, to demand more not from arrogance but from alignment with your worth. Greatness is waiting, and the only question left is this: will you answer the call?